Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for being here this morning. And I just want to start off by saying thanks to you. We appreciate each and every one of you and all that you do in our community. And we appreciate the relationships that we have with you. And thank you for that. We are excited this morning to have Natalie Gochnour with us this morning. She has been so generous and come to speak here at this event for many years, and I'd like to thank her for all that she does for us and for her presentation. So just a brief introduction of Natalie. Natalie serves as an Associate Dean of the Eccles School of Business and a Director of the Kem C. Gardner Policy Institute at the University of Utah. She also serves as a Chief Economist for the Salt Lake City Chamber. In these roles, she provides policy leadership that helps Utah prosper. We'd like to welcome Natalie Gochnour.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be with you today. I have to tell you that I look forward to this every year. I'm not exactly sure what goes into all of that, but part of it is this ritual of coming to Utah County in the morning and seeing how beautiful this valley is. And today was no exception. I hope all of you saw the sunrise and what it was doing on the clouds. There was this pattern. I'm on I-15. I almost wanted to take a picture, because I don't think people, outside of our state know what an incredible, what an incredibly beautiful state this is. And I actually come today bearing some good news. I'm excited about where we're headed in the economy, and there's certainly a ton of uncertainty. But I've got I got in my mind some data I want to share with you that I think will make you feel good too. So I'm going to start out big and get small, and I want to thank, as I start, Central Bank for how kindly they treat me, and I want you to know that they make a donation to a scholarship fund at the University of Utah to thank me for the visit here this morning, and I'm so grateful because we pass it on to students who will make their lives better and hopefully help all of you in the workforce. So thank you for that. GDP growth. That's the macro measure that we use to look at the economy. This is US data, showing it by year, 2021, 22, 23, 24. I kept 21 in there because they're big numbers, and this is the post-pandemic fake economy, right? All this money floating around that was, manufactured to get us through a very serious economic event. And then kind of a little bit of recovery, but if you look at those last 2.5 years, those are some strong GDP numbers. Real GDP, we generally say want to be 2% and above, and you can see these numbers 2.7, 3.4, and ending out at 3.1. And the forecast for 2024 that we'll finish the year with a 3% annual GDP growth, and the forecasts for 2025 are in the 2.5 to 3. So those are big numbers. This is a little bit of a complicated graphic, so let me kind of describe what you're seeing here. Too many economists who write about the economy, they'll talk about the US economy as the envy of the world right now. Why do they say that? It's because we did relatively well during the pandemic and have prospered since. So what this data is showing you, that red line, I made it China. Normally the red's Utah because I'm from the U, but it's China. and I'm taking Europe, China, and the US and making them the same in 2019, and then what's happened since, right? So how has their percent difference from the pre-pandemic growth trend changed? And you see the US in blue, that the downturn in the pandemic isn't as significant. You see it comes out quicker, and then it stays at a higher level above China and above Europe. And so this is just one way of saying that the pandemic was gut-wrenching, incredibly difficult, but we outperformed other nations. All eyes are on inflation. This is the Consumer Price Index. You don't have to do a lot of explaining here. There's the big bump that gets us up to 9% inflation during the pandemic. Ouch. Can talk about that, ask me questions in the Q&A. Fed's been able to bring it down, but it gets to about 2.6%. Right now it's 2.9, and it's just stuck. They can't seem to move it off of that. And you know, in October, November, we were feeling pretty good. It'd come down, and Fed prognosticators were saying we're going to get 2, 3, 4, maybe rate cuts in 2025. That's gone away. I don't know of anyone that's forecasting 4 rate cuts in 2025. Some 3, the majority 2, and some are even saying 1. And most of those expectations are not in the first quarter or the second, but in the fall. So my personal thinking is that you won't see another rate cut until probably the September timeframe. Could be wrong, but it's sticky and it's stuck there. But here's the thing: the Fed has this mandate to keep us at full employment and low predictable inflation, and everybody hoped for a soft landing, but it almost never occurs. This graphic showing you that they got it. And all economists have been nervous to say that soft landing happened because monetary policy has these long lags. But if you look at this graphic, what it's showing you is that yellow area, the top line is full employment, somewhere around 4%. And the bottom of the yellow is 2% inflation. And in red, you're seeing inflation. In gray, you're seeing unemployment. And look at how they landed in that yellow band. So that's really good news. Okay, I want to thicken the plot a little bit and start talking about Utah. And I'm going to show you several maps, and I'm going to have to kind of explain it because I don't expect you to read every little number in the map. But this is the most recent GDP growth. It takes us through third quarter 2024. And it's the year over percent change, so third quarter 2023, third quarter 2024, Utah at 4.6%, the top performing state in the nation. It's wonderful, and President Adams, the president of the Utah Senate, in his opening remarks in the legislative session on Tuesday, referenced this data. So we are looking right now as the best performing economy by that measure. Here's another measure. This is called the Coincident Economic Index. They should name it something else. This comes out of the Philly Fed. But instead of looking at one measure like GDP or one measure like jobs, they take a mix of measures. That's the coincident. What are all of them saying together? So we're looking at employment, manufacturing work, unemployment, income, CPI. And in this graphic, the white states are doing the best. You want to have a high number. And you see Utah at 181. The only state doing better in this measure is Arizona at 183. And actually, they're just above everybody else. There's nobody even coming close to those 2 states by this measure. So once again, Utah economy differentiating itself. If I look at job growth, not quite the same story. So now I'm looking at job growth, and by the way, I noticed as I parked that the new jobs number came out this morning. So this is 1 month old now, so go look at the state jobs report for today because there's 1 more month of recent data. But here, the darker the state, the higher your job growth, and you'll see Idaho and Alaska and Nebraska, you'll see North Carolina. Anyway, you'll see that there's some states that are doing better than Utah, but Utah's still in that top tier for job growth. Okay, thickening the plot more. Here's our job growth by industry. So states growing at 1.8%, fastest growing industry, healthcare. That's not always the case, but for this month, healthcare. It says healthcare and private education, but we don't have a lot of private education. So that's interesting, but look at the second fastest growing industry, construction, and construction has held that top seat or the second to best seat for several consecutive months. I know many of you work in construction, and our state is building a lot of structures. And it's a really good thing because we need it. And then I'll also just point out the government growing at 3.7%. I would ask your elected official about that. It's been too high for too long, and I think that is a concern to me. It's outpacing the private sector at this point. And we understood it several months ago because there was some pandemic effects still in the data, but I think we're long past where the government should be growing that fast. So, all right, I don't know what else you want to look at there. Trade, transportation, utility, the only industry in decline, that is retail trade. Retail trade's still struggling nationwide and in this state. All right, let's keep thickening the plot. I did some things that I haven't done in this audience before, but now I'm showing you job growth by county. And those yellow counties, I threw in Tooele and Morgan County because I thought it was interesting. They're, you know, far and away outpacing the state job growth of 1.8%. But also look at Utah County at 2.1. And if I take those yellow counties out of there, Utah County just pops. And I wanted to give you that perspective to show you what the metro counties are doing. So look at Utah County at 2.1%, more than twice the rate of Salt Lake, Davis, Weber, sort of your peer counties. This county is incredibly important to the Utah economy right now. But I also wanted to see that these ring counties, these, you know, just outside the urban core, Tooele, Morgan, I could pull Wasatch would be another one. They're experiencing even more significant growth in Utah County. We can also look at this on a jobs basis. So on a population basis. So now here's your population numbers. State growing at 1.6, Utah County twice the state average just about at 3.1. Look at the nation growing at 0.5, and then look at Utah County. It gives you a sense of what a growth dynamic there is here. And I just thought you'd find it interesting as well to see that Utah County's population growth is not only outpacing the metro counties, but it's outpacing the periphery counties like Tooele and Morgan. Some interesting dynamics. Did you notice I put Utah County in blue? That was a generous gesture on my part. But the next graphic I didn't make, and they put Utah County in red, and I think they were just having fun. So this is showing you the county share of statewide population growth, and it's just trying to show you bodies. So for 2023, the 2024 numbers have not been released yet. For 2023, Utah County was about 40% of the state's growth, one county. And you can see it represented there in all the people in red. Then the Salt Lake County, about a quarter of the growth, 25%. And then you start to see the rest after that, Davis, Washington, Iron. So this gives you a sense of what a dynamic, high growth, significant, prominent place Utah County is in the Utah economic demographic story right now. I might have a lot more to say about that. You can ask me in questions. I also thought it'd be interesting to you to show you, you know, we think of Utah County as a high birth rate county, a student county, but look at the net migration. This is an average of about 18 new migrants a day, more than leave. If you sum up 14 years of net migration, it's about the size of Orem City. It's about 94,000 people. More have moved in than moved out, predominantly west of Utah Lake. This is very much a Saratoga Springs, Eagle Mountain kind of story, but it's also, you know, in the southern parts of the east of the lake. So what would I say as a state economist who looks at this data? I would say if you're doing business in the nation, you want to be in Utah. And if you're doing business in Utah, make sure you have a good share of Utah County, because Utah County's got a lot to offer right now. I hope that's good news to you. All right, I've become fond of this term, a prodigious place. Of course, it has some alliteration or whatever. That's nice, but what does prodigious mean? Far beyond what is usual. Elicits awe. We have problems and challenges in Utah, but we're a state worthy of emulating. And I wanted to just run through a little bit of data that I've found incredibly differentiating for our state, and I told you I have good news to share, so I just want to kind of show you this and run through it. Speaker Mike Schultz said to me, we live in the best state in the nation. He's real, keen on that. And I'm like, what is the best state? What do we look at when we say the best state? And I've already shown you that GDP growth is something that we need to think about, and we're number one in the nation. So a rapidly growing economy, a lot of opportunity, that might say that you're a best state. How about poverty rate? Let's go to the other end of the spectrum. What percent of our population lives in poverty? Well, it's the lowest in the country. And note that it's not just the lowest, but it's a notch below the next, lowest. So I'm super happy about that. We've got our challenges, but we're doing so much better than other states. Another thing I might look at in thinking of a prodigious place is I might say, how stable are we? How diversified is the economy? Are we like Wyoming and commodity prices bottom out and we suffer? Or are we more like Missouri that has all sorts of industries and is quite diverse? And it turns out that Utah's economy is among the most well-diversified in the country, and it's really unusual for an interior western state to have this characteristic. So what do I mean? In Utah, we have a defense sector, we have an aerospace sector, we have a life science sector, we have energy. I think only 12 or so states claim, an energy state. We have tourism. Obviously, we're a growth state. We have a lot of construction. We're a center for education, a center for healthcare, a center for warehousing and distribution. These are the qualities that make us economically diverse and give us stability. So when I see that we're not the top job growth state in the country, I'm not too worried about it, because I'm so excited that we have a very diverse set of industries. If one suffers, like tourism during the pandemic, you have a lot of other industries that can do well. So this is called a Hoffman Index. It measures that diversity, and the dark red are the most diverse, and I think we're like the 5th most diverse or something in this measure. All right, are you feeling good? Like feeling some good things? I have a few more to show you. Upward mobility. So this is the idea that you're born in this socioeconomic class, and through a lot of hard work and maybe some good luck, whatever, you're able to progress. So we look at the mean income rank of children whose parents earned a certain amount, and what are the kids earning. This is the work of Raj Chetty, if you know that name. He's at Harvard Opportunity Insights, but he is the best researcher on social mobility. And in this graphic, it's at county level. The dark blue is the most highly upwardly mobile places in the country, and every single county in Utah is blue. We have Dr. Chetty coming to town in March to present some of this data to state leaders. He's fascinated by our state. What he tells you in his research is that the #1 correlates of upward mobility are neighborhoods, strong neighborhoods, and integration, not segregation, wealthy here, poor here, but integration. I think that's super interesting. We do that quite well in this state. All right, not done yet. I work in higher education. By the way, higher education's under assault right now by people looking under the cover and saying, do we like what we're getting? We're investing a lot, do we like what we're getting? And I'm of the opinion that the looking under the hood is a good practice. It's really important that we be challenged to be more efficient, to improve our access, and to be affordable, all those sorts of things. But you can't achieve the string of successes I'm spelling out for you this morning without institutions of higher learning that are doing incredible work for this state. And this is just one that's super interesting to me. Lumina Foundation took all the adults state by state and then looked at the percent that have a post-secondary credential or degree. And Utah had the 3rd best outcome there. Isn't that interesting, right? I'm used to Utah being in the top 10 states for education achievement, usually in the bottom part of the 10 for percent high school graduates, percent college graduate and whatnot. But for this very important measure that's getting both tech training and getting the 4-year degree and beyond training, third best workforce in the country. That tells you something about our success. A couple more, not quite done. They often say that the American dream or the secret of American society is a large middle class. So how does Utah rank in the share of our population that make between 2/3 and double the median household income? Well, only South Dakota does better. We're the second best state for the share of our population that's middle class. And all of this kind of matches up because I can also ask the question, well, how equal is our distribution of income in Utah? Turns out we have the most equal distribution of income of any state. This is a Gini coefficient. The lower the number, the more equal your distribution. If it was 1, all of the income would be in one household. If it was 0, every household would have the same distribution. So the 0.42 is what we rank at. Amazing. That's an amazing story. This is part of the upward mobility story, right? That you have a chance of succeeding in this state. And you have people around you that are succeeding, and it's contagious. 2 more, I think. Indiana Business Research Center, just this last year, 2024, did an index of innovative states. They did an innovation index. It's looking at human capital, knowledge creation, business dynamics, your business profile, productivity, economic well-being. They have Utah as the most innovative state in the country. Isn't that something? Now, of course, I made the drive and went through Silicon Slopes to be here this morning. It's not lost on me that this state, in early 2000s decided to double the number of engineers, computer science, and math majors in our state. We did it, and then look at what happened at the point of the mountain. And then we get measures like this. So this is very purposeful, careful thinking about the future of our state and getting a great outcome. Governor Cox, so he gave his State of the State yesterday, but about 2 weeks prior, he gave his inaugural address, his second inaugural address. He did that at the Eccles Theater. I was there, and he celebrated social capital in the state. So think of, in economic terms, think of human capital, your workforce, think of physical capital, your built environment, and then think of social capital, your ability to trust each other, cut deals, collaborate, work together, these networks of trust that prevent problems, solve problems. We call that social capital. It's measured. They'll basically, how do you measure social capital? They'll ask questions. Do you return your census form? Do you vote? Do you volunteer? Do you donate? Do you read to your children at night? Do you attend a church service? I mean, these are all things that they think equate to social capital. And by far, Utah has the best social capital in the country. I lied. I do have one other one. So I also might think, is government working in this state? Public sector is really important. It's got its flaws. But at the most fundamental level, how are they rating our credit worthiness as a state? So all the states in red here have a AAA bond rating from all 3 of the major rating agencies. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Fitch, and Utah is on that list. And just because it's fun to say, maybe it's sad to say, but here's the federal government. So think of this data here. That top green is showing you revenues in fiscal year 2024, 4.9 trillion. Now go to the bottom, the blue, spending, 6.9 trillion, a gap of $2 trillion. Unbelievable that we've let this happen, and it's happening during good economic times, I remind you. We got challenges, inflation and whatnot, but we're the envy of the world for how our economy is performing, and we're still borrowing money to pay for the functions of government. That red thing is the net interest. Nearly $1 trillion in net interest, bigger than the defense budget. This is such a huge problem. I call it termites in the house. They're eating away at the foundations of the financial outlook for this country, and we just gotta change this. That's not Utah. Utah has a balanced budget. Utah has budget reserve accounts. Utah has a spending limitation. Utah has the AAA bond rating. I could think of more things, but we're the gold standard. All right, did I make you feel good? Did I pump you up a little bit? The reason I wanted to do that is I just wanted to get us a sense of how remarkable this state is and thank people for making that happen. Your businesses are a big part of that success. But also I wanted to just cue up this notion that we have all those distinguishing features. We're prodigious, but we are changing. And the number one obligation that today's leaders have is to, work through the change and keep all that's good. And I don't know the magic answer to that. And I got to run quickly here because I want to have you ask me some questions. But we've been promulgating this notion of a new Utah, that there's 6 transitions that we've gone through as a state. We used to be a small state. The data shows we're now a mid-sized state. We used to get most of our growth from the inside. Now we're getting it from the outside. We were fairly monocultural from a racial and ethnic point of view, definitely multicultural now. Young to old, strong to elite in the economy, and that last one from an affordable housing market to an unaffordable housing market. And I won't go through all these, but here's a big part of the change. Our fertility rate is plummeting. And if you just look at, this is going all the way back to 1960, the end of the baby boom and fertility rates drop. But from about 1985 to the Great Recession, it's sitting there at about 2.6 births per woman. It's pretty flat. Great Recession hits and fertility rates start to drop. And we scratch our heads and we say, it's a really bad recession. People are uncertain. There's a lot of concern about their economic well-being. They stop having as many kids. But it never came back. And that was a long expansion between 2010 after the Great Recession until the pandemic. And fertility just kept dropping every year. I think it's on a 14-year slide. So that gives you this kind of data, and sorry for how complicated this is, but the red is net migration. So if it's above 0, it's net in. That's the red. That light blue line is birth increase. What I wanted to show you is see how the light blue line dips below the red, showing you that we're getting more of our growth from the outside than from our births. That's a change in Utah. A big part of the changing fertility is that new people bring their fertility patterns with them, and that changes Utah. Can't help but also want to mention what's happening in housing, and I can pick all sorts of measures there. You know so many of them so well because you're home builders, some of you, but this data is just showing you Wasatch Front single-family mortgage and rents together, and you see the gray line is the median single-family rent climbing, but the red is showing you the median monthly payment for single-family mortgage. Look at that. And, I'm watching mortgage rates as closely as many of you are, and, it's not helping. It's not helping. And the interesting thing about this is if you're a homeowner, you're just getting wealthier and wealthier and wealthier. What I'm worried about is the people that are trying to become homeowners. And that's a cohort of Utahns that are being locked out or delayed for a decade. Now, I have children in that age, and I've come to learn that the only way you get into the housing market as a young adult is if someone helps you. And that's great if you've got people that can help you, but think of all the young adults, the household formation that doesn't have help, and they have to delay home ownership or wealth creation for a decade. They'll be permanently less wealthy. This is why Governor Cox is making this a top priority. It's why, other state leaders are. And I'll just mention this. It's not exactly clear what government can do. I think of home, the housing sector is a private sector phenomenon, with the one big exception that local government isn't permitting what they need to permit. And this is widely understood in my, in the circles I'm in, that state government needs to create the incentives, put the pressure to have local government permit what needs to be permitted to meet market demand. So anyway, that's the main. We need to have a workforce, and we need to have the materials, and we need a lot of things. We need to have the land availability, but we need local government to permit housing to meet demand. Well, I'm going to just end, and then I'll open up for questions by saying this is a favorite painting of mine that Mike Leavitt, our former governor, had commissioned, called Keepers of the Flame. This is very Leavitt-esque. This is his grandfather up above Cedar City at a night when there was a snowstorm, and his grandfather and his brothers had to go rescue some doggy lambs, and they got caught in a snowstorm, had to spend the night up in the mountains. And while this grandfather of Mike Leavitt's brothers were out looking for wood, his grandfather had to keep the flame burning because they were out of matches. And I love the metaphor, because what I've tried to show you is, yeah, we've got some positives. The outlook for 2025 is strong. There's uncertainty, but it's strong. And Utah's so well positioned, such an amazing state, but we have to be keepers of what makes this state amazing. And in Governor Cox's inaugural speech, he said, you know, we've been able to accomplish a lot of great things over the past 4 years because of our strong social capital, the way we interact with one another, associational life. He says, if we want to continue to cut taxes, create jobs, build infrastructure, lift people out of poverty, and make the American dream a reality for the next generation, we need more of it. And it can only happen, and then this is sort of the secret sauce of Utah: one family, one neighborhood, one community at a time. It starts here and stretches outward, and that's, in my opinion, the great secret of Utah. With that, let's open it up for questions.